everybody. I think we can start, and we will just see as new people come in. I forgot will admit them, but I think for the rest of us that is here, we can start with the session. And a very warm welcome to everybody that's logged in at this stage. And welcome to this first webinar in the series of 4 on the Academia Student Information System and why should you use the Academia Student Information Management System. My name is Hanni Spangenberg. I'm the General Manager for Student Information Systems at IFOCorp. I want to invite you through the session to use the chat box and introduce yourself and tell us a bit about the country where you come from, the type of institution that you come from. And then if there's time, we will also give everybody a chance to just introduce themselves maybe later in the session. But then also for questions, comments that you have, please use the chat box. We will address them at the end, except if it's a relevant question to where we are in the presentation and you want to ask it at this stage, then just put your video on and Stian will unmute you and you're more than welcome to ask the questions. So otherwise, I will at the end of the session just go through all the questions and we can address them. The webinar will also be recorded and will be sent out to everybody that has registered for it afterwards so that you can have a copy of the webinar. I want to extend a warm welcome to the attendees that we expect in this session that will be from South Africa, of course, then Namibia, people from Swaziland, Lesotho, Ghana, and from Zimbabwe, and also a warm word of welcome to our local partner in Zimbabwe. I see Jason is also on the call. Welcome, Jason. It is wonderful to have so many people of so many African countries represented. Which just again shows that although we're in different countries, the challenges that we experience are exactly the same. So welcome to this first one of the 4 webinars. They will be scheduled over the next month or 4 weeks, and every week we will address one of the sessions in the Why Academia topic. I am going to, I hope my screen is still shared, so I think let me start with that. So this today we're going to talk about user experience. If you choose a student information system, what should you look at and why is academia a wise choice in deciding on a student information system if you look at the user experience? The next week we will look at customization, configuration and integrations, which is a bit more on the technical side. Then the third week, we will look at technology and hosting. And again, this is not the technical side of hosting, it is the user value side of the technology and hosting of the system. And in the last week, we will look at the cost efficiency. And this period, I think cost efficiency may be the most imminent one that you want to discuss. So I'm leaving the best for last, but then we will talk about that also a bit. So you are very welcome. And if you have, as I said, if you have any questions, just please interrupt them and we can speak to them or we will address them at the end. Very shortly, I don't want to spend a lot of time on academia, on IFOCorp as the company, but it's also important to remember that somewhere in this, it belongs to a bigger picture. So where does the academia system fall into the picture of IFOCorp? IFOCorp is a company that has been, I think if we go back 1 year, has been doing business in Africa and in South Africa for many years. So if you look at the map of all the institutions, all the countries that's marked in purple, that is where we have existing clients. So most of the English-speaking African countries, we have clients, and most probably we already have a client or a client base in your country also. IFOCorp is serving 450 organizations across the continents of Africa, a lot of education staff and students that we service, and a lot of schools, universities, and colleges, about 8,000 that we service, the educators in them. With a grouping of systems that supports the education sector, and we will very quickly look at that. IFOCorp has been in business for more than 20 years, so it's not a new company, and we have seen many changes in the education sector, and that's one of the things that we do. We keep in line with where does technology in education move and how can we make sure that we stay relevant to what the institutions need. I can just brag a bit. Last year, IFOCorp has been awarded the most innovative higher education technology company in 2020 in the African Excellence Awards. We were also given the award as the best e-learning consultancy firm in Africa, which are two very relevant awards in a time like last year, where we had to look at innovation and technology to make sure that we bring to the education sector what they need. And from those awards, you can just see it's a recognition of our demonstration to excellence, commitment, dedication, and that's all to the higher education technology sector where we operate in. What does IFOCorp do, and where, I think the more important question is, where does academia fit into this picture? Because at the end of the day, you have a need for a specific system at this stage, or a specific part of your business at this stage. But you also want to know that this falls into a picture where if you as an institution expand, or if your business changes, or if the market, I mean, that is the best example that we have last year, if the sector and the market changes for education and you have to quickly adjust, then you still want your student information system to be somewhere part of a bigger picture that can adjust with your institution and can manage with that. And there's where IFOCorp has got a grouping of systems that manages the student experience. We've got Canvas, which is a learner management system. We've got an academia student information system. Now, learner management and student information, of course, talks very closely to each other. And in many cases, they are used as one system, although software-wise, there may be two systems. Turnitin, which is for plagiarism detection software, and that is very, very widely used in the African sector, and also based on the experience of last year, very important in the set that you as the institution must have to service your students. Digicama Invigilator and Digicama Learner Management System, Digicama SAS, that is systems that we have that manages with freeware or shareware like Moodle. It manages your learner management side. There's a smaller student information management system that you can use. Modalabs, that's for designing of your own mobile applications via a platform or a framework. Brainwaves, it is the change management component that manages the technology and the human side of changes in your institution for all these bigger projects. So that is a grouping of systems that we have that talks to each other and that supports this life cycle in the institution. And then, of course, our strong point is a host of services, learner management implementations, and support of that, digital teaching and learning accredited courses that you can offer fully online or on-site, content development, course development toolkits for your lecturers or your teaching staff to do their own content development, digitization of study guides, some technical services, a whole host of that. That all forms part of this one bigger picture of what we do in the education sector for your institution. And academia is very central in this picture because that is usually where the base of most of your information lies. And that is why it is so important to make sure that when you choose SIS, the SIS is not only chosen for what does the academics need to get, to input into the system and get from it, but also in this bigger picture, how does it support our business processes towards the other divisions? How does it support the total student experience that we have in the institution and where we want to move with this? And those are things that many times you know that, but you don't look at those as a criteria when you decide on a student information system. The company that develops academia system, they've been for 10 years in education, and they've got about 200 customers globally, which also shows you that this is not a new small system that is now developed in lieu of the many challenges that suddenly arises in the last 2 years with student information systems. This is a well-tested and lived-through system, and is used in many countries, of which South Africa, and some of the other African countries also, like in Ghana, and there's also some clients. Okay, so what does academia do? Today we're going to focus on a small part of academia, but in general, what does the system do? It's a student management system, like most of the student management systems, that manages the cycle of the students from campaigns and inquiries to admissions and registrations, residences if you have that. This, of course, is integrated with your student finances, where for any of the actions that you do, you can also generate a fee. Academic management, your full curriculum management, your academic structure that you have, managing the rules with regards to that, the prerequisites, co-requisites, your attendance, very important in many of the countries now for sponsor purposes, for bursary purposes, for progression purposes, is attendance. And even in this online environment, it's still important for the institution to be able to manage attendance. Now, this is where the integration between your SIS and your LMS comes in, because in a remote environment, the LMS will manage or capture the attendance, but your base record or your golden record of your student will still be on your in your SIS, your student information system. And therefore, it is that important that there must be a seamless integration, like with academia and the SIS or the LMSs that is used in the institutions, to make sure that that critical data comes back to your SIS student-based record and is part of the record of the student. Of course, it can be also captured for online in the academia system. Timetables, then it manages the study material, examinations up until completion. So that is the cycle that is managed for students in the academia system. Now, for finances is of course an integral part of all of this. As any action takes place, a finance transaction can be generated with rules with regard to around that. Okay, and then of course we will look a bit at this today, but the portals for the stakeholders or the communication side of the system and the structures that supports it. So that is a very common picture of what you usually, I mean, there's still things in here that I do immediately pick up. We do campaigns, not many SISs do campaigns. So, but this is a general picture of what happens in a student information system. So if you look at deciding what do we want to use, why do we want to use something, just to look at what is the base of it that's offered by that SIS, or what are the things that is marketed as very unique points for that SIS. You can't just concentrate on that. You must look at what is the bigger picture of where does this fit into the total needs of your institution and also into the total picture of what your SIS needs to do. So to evaluate that a bit, we're going to look in the next 3-4 weeks at user experience, customization, technology, and cost efficiency. So for today, let's focus on the user experience side. Now, user interface, that is the word that most people know, and most people use because they think that is the defining factor when you look at a SIS. Look at the user interface. So Steve Jobs, he of course started this whole user interface drive when he looked at GUI and the mouse, and everybody was very impressed that you can use something that's a bit different. And that changed the front-end application view of how you as a user or how your users interacts with the software that they use. And that was very important for many years. But now the user experience, so that is the user interface, so UI, your UX, your user experience, that is what determines how does your user feel after they've used the interface of that system. Of course, these two cannot be disconnected from each other. But many times when you decide on a SIS, you look at the user interface, what does it look like, and how easy does it seem to work. But there's a level of user experience that goes beyond just your interface, and that has got a big effect on how does your users experience the system, and therefore, what is the uptake in the usage of the system? And that is the part that is many times forgotten. So if you look at the user experience, now once there's something for them to interact with, the user interface, their experience, whether that is positive, negative, neutral, change the users about how they feel with the interactions that they do in the system. So user interface must provide a meaningful and relevant experience to the users. It doesn't help if you take a system that's really, it's got a posh UI, a posh user interface, but the relevance of the experience to your users on what they need and what they get from it is totally disconnected from what their actual needs are. So look at the user interface that supports a user experience that's meaningful and relevant. Another one is the user experience must provide positive experiences that keeps your users loyal to the brand or the product. You want your lecturers to like the system that they work on. You want your students to brag about the portal that they use when they apply at the institution or when they look at their marks or the communication that they get. They must want other institution students to look at what they use. So you want your management to generate a report that is in such a format that they are proud to present that to a board where they must present. So they must be loyal to that product and brand or brand that they use. And then lastly, which is one of the newer things that makes it such a big difference to the interface that you use, the experience must allow you to define your customer journey on your product. The user experience must allow you to build a journey for each of your types of users. Now you have, and we will look at the stakeholders today, but there's many types of stakeholders. And this experience must allow you to build that customer journey based on how they are, because people are so overthrown with technology that it's nothing new to them. They just want to do it in a way that fits with what they want to do and how they want to do it. And that is what you must make sure when you start to look at your user interfaces. I'm quickly going to see if there's chats going to monitor. It doesn't seem like that. Okay, so the user experience is also important to know that this is the end user. Now, the end user may be in a management member of management, a student, a parent, or a sponsor of a student. Your personnel members are, of course, end users. It may be the governing body with whom you interface to supply data or statutory reporting information. That user interface is all aspects of the services and the products of that company, and you are the company in this case. You as a university or a college or a school or the company. So the user interface is something that makes such a big difference, not only to how you feel about the system, but how other stakeholders experience the quality of what you as an institution offer. And that is why looking at the SIS is not just a case of deciding on something that can fit the functional needs of what you want to do and continue with that. So there's always before we look at the system, there's always a difference in what the institution specific priorities for user experiences and user interfaces is. And there's many theories of documents now, documents that you can get on that, on what is the components that you must look at when you decide on SIs. But you as an institution must make sure that the ones that is important to you, those are the ones that is satisfied with the SIS that you choose. So if you want to make sure that things are consistent, if you use your portal or a personnel member uses the lecture administration site, or a management member uses the dashboards in management, you want it to be consistent, and that's one of the things that you look at. If you want to keep things simple, you want to give the control to the users, look at the checks and balances that's built in, look at the user access control, at the audit files that's built in. So make sure that if you identify which of these components is important to you, your institution, make sure that the system fits the controls to have these components in place. Okay, that is a bit about the theory of why do you not just jump in and choose a system? It is important what the system looks like, but it's also important on how does your stakeholders feel when they use the system. So who's the stakeholders? If you are a university or a college, who will be your stakeholders? I think we can start with management. There's many more than just the 6 that I've got here, but let's start with management because they're usually the ones that Oh, I wanted to say shout the most, but not necessarily. I think these days the student shouts more and harder and is more heard than the top and the middle management. But you want to satisfy the needs of top and middle management. One of the things that academia does is through that is with analytics for management. We have very effective analytic tools that allows you to generate meaningful analytics, but in a user-friendly and easy way to read. So this example is of the leads. You are busy with applications, you're building up leads and you want the students to apply from all over, especially this period where remote learning is so free and open for somebody to sit, a student to sit anywhere and join the university. Then the building up of leads from anywhere is just as important. And this example of analytics shows you the typical way in which we build analytics. So this gives some key components: total leads, open leads, closed, link to applications, and then it gives you the detail of that in a graphical format. But more important, it's got parameters at the top where you can, as you, during the meeting and you discuss this report, you can change the campus, for example. So if you just want to show the data for one campus, and that is, of course, based on your availability or your permission to the data, or you just want to show the data for one qualification for all campuses, or you just want to show the data for one of the brands. And this is another thing that makes academia unique, is that it's got multi-company functionality. So if you are an institution that's got the university and then you've got a business school, but the business school fairly runs on its own with own structures and own branding and own rules and own financials. And then you've got 5 other campuses as part of the main campus. That is all the other academia can manage it, because it can manage multiple brands or multiple companies within the one system. But yes, showing management the data in an analytical format that allows it to also manipulate the data and play around with it, and from here print the data very easily. Can you just think of if a management person can sit in a meeting and get asked these questions, and they simply take the academia system and show the tool and play around with the data, instead of trying to convert the data to an Excel spreadsheet and now start to manipulate the data in an Excel spreadsheet. This is just a view of the same thing. I've just scrolled down and said, okay, also show me this lead succession conversion by brand or leads by sources. Very powerful ways to easily and efficiently display the data. And of course, it needs to look nice, but more importantly, it must be data that is relevant to the type of questions that is asked from somebody in administration on the fly. And that is usually where the problem with management reporting or analytic comes in. Somebody suddenly one morning wonders on, what are we going to do with this? And you are the one that needs to answer that question. Academia is very strong on those types of report generation. Another thing for management is the management dashboard. As a management member logs into the system, that can be any personnel member, you can set up dashboards that speak specifically to the type of information that you want to monitor. So I, for example, want to monitor student registrations and admission registration or admissions for a specific period. And as I log on, the system can immediately show me that information in a dashboard format with drill downs to the detail of the data. A very easy way to monitor data on a regular basis, simply via going into the system, and the system will selectively show you the data that you want to monitor. The dashboard also serves as a communication tool to your management. So again, there, the management as a stakeholder, they want to see the notifications that comes to them, and this dashboard also entails all of that. Not only for management, but for anybody. The exporting of reports, you can very easily manipulate data by selecting different sets of reports or different sets of data and exporting that directly from the system into a reporting format. Why is this important? Most systems have got reports, but many times it's a separate tool that is used for reporting, and it makes it very difficult for an institution or for a management person that doesn't regularly work on the system to now try and monitor these, to keep them happier. And it's easy for them to get hold of the data that they need. Then students, of course, your next stakeholders, and I want to take back my first comment, they are definitely the people that shout more and have more control sometimes these days. So what do we want to do with students? They've come a long way. They started with standing in long queues, then laboratory registrations and applications, then onto their own environment. But where students now, they want to sit anywhere, in any place, and they want to be serviced. And that is not only for registrations and applications, that is for any type of data that they have. And you must make sure that the student information system, which forms the base of many of this information, must be relevant to how a student wants to be serviced. One of the things that academia does is the customization of processes for your web applications and online processes. For example, application is always a good example that together with registration, we design a customized process for application that fits the way in which your institution wants to use application. So this is the example of a 4-step, and the student can click and go through the steps. What is different here? Usually a SAS has got a pre-designed application form or application process, and to adjust that is where in the implementation process, it becomes a costly exercise to the institution. Academia comes with an idea and a base or a framework of application on what type of information, but the design of that application is 100% according to your institution needs and how you want your process to be displayed. Another way in which you can keep your students very happy is through the portal for students. We spoke about the portal a bit, but this again showing the student as they log onto the portal, showing them dashboard information, so summarized information that's relevant only to them as a student, and again then all the actions that is needed for the student to register, to pay their fees and continue. The one thing that makes it very unique is the fact that the students also have the ability to set up a dashboard that allows them to monitor information relevant to them as a student. It is also a good communication tool for your institution, because if you've got something like active surveys, you can set up those surveys and deploy them to the students. As the students log on, they will see them and they can complete them. Same with communication here. Another way in which you definitely want to keep your students happy is with a mobile device. So academia as a system is device independent. You can use any device for any of the applications that you want to use, or any of the pieces of data that you want to work with. But as part of the deployment of the system, there's also a mobile app that is designed for the students and for the lecturers, which allow you to push information to them and display information. That is a part of the deployment of the system and not a separate costly effect to then get a mobile app that is in line with your student information system. Another way, of course, is your chatbot, so that you can set up the chatbot and you can set up the types of questions and answers. You have control over the data that it displays. It's also live feeds from your, let's say, your academic structure. So if the prospective student asks a question based on something in the academic structure, it can live answer or take live data from that and answer directly, which makes a very good communication tool, as we know with chatbots. So yes, that's very powerful also to use with the student side. Okay, so students, you want to make sure that they can get the information when they want it, where they want it. And I also do think in a way that keeps them enticed, because they are the ones that's quickest to leave if they don't feel interested enough to continue to look at the data. And that is where new technology like academia makes sure that you can always use technology to entice the students. Let's look at your academic personnel. I want to see where we are with time. Let's look at your academic personnel. They are the people that will mostly work on the system on an administrative level. And they also fall into different components. So let's look at the lecturers. Lecturers, the academia system has got a mobile responsive portal for lecturers that allows lecturers to, with their smartphones or their tablets, to access a lot of data. which is not rare to have, but it allows the portal allows the lecturers to have responsive feedback, so they can choose specific sets of data and specific actions, and the system will respond on that by changing the way in which the data is feedback. So a very powerful way to share and to communicate with your lecturers. And the lecturers are those people that usually they don't sit on campus, but they need a lot of information from the system, and they enter a lot of information into the system via the assignments and the examinations. In a learner management system and the SIS, LMS, the SIS combination, now, a lot of this data will go directly to your SIS, to your LMS, because the students will do their assignments and some of their examinations on the LMS. Again, with the interface that comes directly back to your SIS and becomes part of the data that will be displayed or supplied to the end users, and that again may be the students or the lecturers or the parents in the parent portal via the portals that is set up in academia. And that's just a few views of what you can do with the different, or what you can see with your mobile responsive portal for lecturers. Things like enter your marks and list your assignments and see the assignments. The academics and the administrative personnel within the academia system will get a lot of value from the easy way in which the system allows you to search, to enter, to interrogate by doing drill downs, to print, to communicate. The system is designed to make that easy. And this is an example of, let's say, academic personnel or administrative personnel. Yeah, let's take this, the academic. He looks on the portal as the specific courses that he offers. You can immediately see 24 students, you can view the timetable, you can view the mark or enter the attendance, you can enter the marks, and you can send a message to that class group. That message can be SMS or a email, but directly from the system for the grouping of students without going through a selection process, taking that to a tool and now sending the message. Directly from the system, communication can be done, and that indicates the CRM capability that is built into the academia system for communication and ease of information distribution purposes, making it very easy to communicate. Also, it's a bit of a side note, we will get to that later on in the 4-week series, but things like the naming conventions of the fields. This, I want to use the example of schedule here specific. That can be changed, or that is changed for each institution when you implement. So you, with implementation, use the institution decide on the names that we want for the fields. We don't use course, we use qualification, and we don't use module, we use subject. And the system is implemented with the naming convention that you as the institution use to make it specific to your own environment. So this showing you the ease of use for, let's take the example of a lecturer, to see what is who's the students, how many are there, and who's the students that is in learning and development, in the learning and development course. What's the timetable? Mark the attendance, enter the marks, or send them all a message. Today's class will not happen. We will only continue with classes tomorrow. Quick and easy ways for you to communicate without having to go back to your student information system IT side and requesting things from them for servicing to help. Another thing for academics is the display of the reports in also analytical format. Easy for you to generate reports that is relevant to your day-to-day tasks. Here I've got the example of attendance. Attendance is a very big thing in South Africa. I don't know about all the other African countries. I know in Namibia it's also very relevant, but having an easy way to display daily attendance, a specific student's attendance report, the summary of attendance, seeing that in a graphical format as well as in a text format in an easy way. And that is the reporting side of academia system. Is there to assist you after you've put in all this masses of data to assist you to now get that back in a usable, enticing way that you want to do something with the data. Because many times this information you get back and this report you need to present to somebody. And that is where the challenge comes in, to have this data in a way that is presentable to somebody outside your institution or outside your division, and they must look at that, make sense of it, but also think that it is worth, the system that you use is worth from what you get from the system. Okay, more reports such as more examples of all the different ways in which you can see the data in a graphical format. Of course, then the data can also be in a text format. And that is for your academics to make sure that they have tools, their responsive portal, their dashboards within their own portal, the back office with drill down functionality and easy to query and communicate functionality, that the lecturers have tools that they can use to make their work a lot easier. Administrative personnel, we touch on that a bit, but they of course are the ones that does the masses of data entry. And again, there's many tools in the system to make the query of data and the entry of data easy for them. Type of things that they do, again, there's drill down so that they can easily drill down to the data that they want to see. They can sort the data differently from what it is sorted at this stage. And then more importantly, they, as well as anybody else that uses the system, can decide on the layout of their screen. So this is an example of the courses that a specific personnel member is offering, and this is the actions that they can do. But by a simple right click, this personnel member can decide, I don't want to see schedule and sessions and attendance on this screen that I work with. I use this for a specific purpose, and simply click those fields away and it adjusts your fields or your screen to the fields that you have selected. By that, customizing the look and feel for each of the users that is relevant to what they want to do on the system. Making it easy and clean per individual to work with what you want to see and what you want to view. And it's a great way to make sure that the system is not cluttered with the many fields that's needed in the system, but you as an individual, you don't need those fields and you don't enter them or you don't view them. And that is a way to unclutter your screen from those screens for any of the dashboard reports. Very, very friendly tool, making it a lot easier to view your data. Okay, again, also the administrators, from one single point of query of data, they can do things like send surveys, send messages, immediately send out a message to, let's say this is inquiries, and the inquiries has got statuses. You want to see who has been enrolled, who has been applied, who's successful, not successful, depending on your statuses. And then you want to quickly send the message, WhatsApp, to the different types of users, indicating everybody that was successful. This is one message, and another message to another grouping. And the end user in the administration side, if they've got access to this functionality, can very easily send that message and that information. Again, without having to go to outside tool, because I don't think there's a system where you can't send messages these days, but many times it is a disconnected function of the SIS, and you have to go through a separate action to get to the stage where you can send that. Analytics is here just as important. So a report like this of the list of inquiries, if you want to convert that to your applications or inquiries, it's easy to see between the two and monitor your data in different formats. That is, it speaks to you as an end user, because not all people view data in the same way. And you want to make sure that the system accommodates your different type of people that works on the system and the way in which they want to experience the data or work with the data. That is for administrative personnel. Lastly, I'm quickly going to touch on the parents and the sponsors and the regulatory bodies. The most important part is that to make sure that they have access to data, and you don't have to paper distribute this information or electronic distributed information on a regular basis. There can be portals for your parents or your guardians or your sponsors, as well as for your regulatory bodies that you send information to. And this portal allows the parent or the guardian or the sponsor to log into the system and see the information relevant to whoever is sponsoring or whoever is the parent for, based on what you want to distribute to them. Making it easy to communicate with a stakeholder that can actually have a big influence on the ways in which your institution is perceived. And if you have a happy parent, of course, it's much easier to have a happy student. So making sure that you distribute the communication as well as the individual information to those parents. Can you do it in most systems? Yes, but it is part and parcel of the academia system. It's not a separate development that needs to be done and that is outside the scope of the initial project. It is just part of how the system is deployed. Okay, sorry, I just read that message quickly. Okay, then I think that is the last part on how do you want to keep the last of your shareholders happy. Of course, regulatory bodies or government reporting that you have to do, that is one of the biggest stakeholders if you want to get funding. And the system supplies and interfaces with those bodies, for example, with EMIS and FETMIS data, to make sure that that information is distributed in the required format to those different bodies. And I think with that, I will stop. Let me quickly see where we are on time. I'm going to make sure that you keep to the time frame and just open the floor up. If there's any questions on any of the things that is discussed, I will also quickly monitor the chat box and see if there's questions that has come in there. But is there anything that is unclear and that you want to? Hi, Jason, welcome back. I saw that was quite a while ago, but anything that you want to ask some questions on? I think the most important part of today is that you want to make sure that what your shareholders experience from the system is worth the effort of having a SIS. Because the SIS is not about the masses of data that you can input and you can prove that you have this somewhere in a central database or central framework where the data can be reached, but what do you do with this data and how does the people, the shareholders that work with this, what is their experience? Because user experience is a marketing tool for your institution. You must market your institution so that students from any of the countries want to study at your institution. And one of those things is how technology-wise and efficient do they perceive the institution. And of course, the UI and the UX of your SIS is very important. Okay, are there any more questions? If everybody's happy, we will try and keep this under an hour every week. Our marketing department will now distribute the recording to everybody, and you are welcome to listen to that again. If you can think of questions, just come back to me and we'll answer. You're also welcome to park your questions for next week if you log in again, and we can address those questions. And then I hope I see you all back next week. Then we will continue and we will look at the next part of this, the configuration and the customization and interfacing of how easy the academia system makes that for your institution. Okay, thank you everybody. I appreciate your time. You must have a good week.
Thank you.